Which car brand is terrible, but not many people realize? Range Rovers. People spend over $100,000 to buy them, then end up in the shop getting fixed, and spend who know how much to get them fixed. Always wanted to own one, but after posts and posts about how unreliable and how expensive they are to fix, I just lost interest in eventually owning one. And don't want to hear, if you have 100K per 100K to spend on a RAR, then you have money to fix it. That shouldn't be the case. The series on Jalopnik back in the day where one of their writers got a bumper-to-bumper warranty from CarMax on a gently used Range Rover and then proceeded to smoke them for many times the purchase cost and repairs was a hoot. I can't imagine why anyone would pay for a Chrysler Dodge product. Edit. Wow, this blew up. LOL. I'm glad many of you have had good experiences with Dodge products at least. This is more of a statistically they have more problems than most other vehicles situation, not a every single product they sell is going to fail in 6 months, except for the Chrysler part. Those really do. The models you see on the road that are 10 years old are an indicator of reliability. That leaves pretty much just Chargers and the newest generation of Durangos. That's pretty much it from Dodge, or Chrysler Rams not included. Jeep. Specifically the Wrangler. It's a purpose-built tool that does a very specific task extremely well. It is unbeatable off-road. However, the things that make a car great off-road generally make it miserable on-road. It's not a bad car, it's just not great at the things most people care about. Fuel economy, comfort, handling, noise, etc. At one point, I was dead set on buying a Wrangler. 20-minute test drive convinced me otherwise. I've never driven another vehicle that loud and uncomfortable. I live in a liberal arts college town, and Subarus are everywhere. And everyone raves about how dependable they are and how they are tanks, while also saying never buy a used Subaru because it for sure has a blown head gasket. Well, that's a pretty significant fucking problem. I met a guy who makes his living just repairing Subaru head gaskets out of his garage. As of this generation Mini, holy fuck, the quality is through the floor now. They are made in China, and the software is basically non-functional. Worth noting, the ICE Minis are still made in Oxford, England. The Joey electric variants are built in China. The quality difference between the British built versus the Chinese built is obvious. The software is problematic either way though. I have a new Ford Maverick hybrid pickup. If turned off on Friday and left to sit until Monday, it will not start. The stupid software drains the battery. I told the dealer I don't want the vehicle to do anything when I turn it off except sit there. He basically told me tough. Do not buy one. It is not a reliable vehicle. I have a new Ford Maverick hybrid. I work from home so I can go days without powering up the truck. I've never had this problem. It's not a problem that is frequently reported on our Ford Maverick truck or any other similar venue. I've driven it for 10 hours without any stops, live during it for short jaunts around town. It sat at the airport for 2 weeks, started with 0 problems. I actually powered it up from my phone at luggage claim to cool it down. They are great little trucks. You got one with a problem. It happens, especially with a vehicle that sold over 130K units last year. It's under warranty. Go get it fixed. Ford, because they refuse to stand by their products. The engine on my 2017 Ford Escape failed at 71,000 miles due to a known design flaw, and Ford refused to make it right. They knew about this problem and continued selling variations of it until 2019 when it was recognized by an internal service memo. In 2015, I'm extra fucked because I bought a less popular engine size, 2.0L versus the more common 1.5L. So there will be no recall unless they're forced by the NHTSA. This defect allows cooling to leak into the cylinders, causing the engine to overheat and eventually catch on fire. It's not even the design flaw that pisses me off. Shit happens. It's Ford's absolute steadfast refusal to acknowledge it or stand by their product. A car is way too expensive to fail around 71 miles, but of course we have little recourse and consumer protections in the US. I will never buy a Ford again, even though I love my Escape otherwise, and I will warn as many people as I can. Or Stellantis, literally every brand they make is hot garbage. Pick a brand and they have engine issues, wiring, or ECU issues. Transmission issues, mystery supplier derived issues. JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, again nothing redeeming here. If you want one, it's it. Nissan, they had a terrible quality slide post-2008 recession. They are currently suffering from the perils of years and years of selling less than competitive product to subprime borrowers. They can't seem to shake off the trashy stink now. Their CVTs have a history of dramatic failure, but also they are clearly choosing cheaper switchgear and components ordered at smaller volumes than the big firms, leading to worse reliability of all systems in the car when compared against Toyota et al. Jeeps. This was a few years ago, but I was with my dad driving on the highway, and his Jeep starts rumbling. And then the tie fell off. The bolts attaching the tire to the frame had completely shorn in two. We survived and got towed to a repair shop that specializes in Jeeps. Turns out the bolts on all Jeeps are faulty. Some sort of metallurgic fault in the casting process. Jeep knows it, but can't do anything about it, because it would mean they would be on the hook for every accident involving a Jeep for decades. So the cars just keep getting made, with the public blissfully not knowing that any bolt in the car can break at any moment. I'd never buy outside Toyota or Subaru. Honda isn't bad, neither is Mazda. I owned a 2006 Toyota Tundra for 13 years and never had any problems. My brother had one as well and had his for about 13 years as well, and his transmission broke. Super reliable. I ended up buying a 2020 Forester. Same as my wife, we got 2 new ones, same model, same year. 6 years we've had them and never had a single problem except for a rock broke my windshield. We take them in for regular maintenance and both have under 50K miles. We expect them to last for a super long time because in about 6 to 7 years, we're giving them to our kids. Anything, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep. Range Rovers are absolute garbage. Audis are pretty bad in terms of reliability. Nissan completely fell off the train when they introduced an unreliable CVT to their lineup. They're also just plastic cars and generally bad. Mercedes and Volkswagen quality is terrible nowadays. Expensive to fix. Unreliable. GMC, Lincoln, and Chevy are all bad. Basically, if you're going to buy a car, stick to your Toyotas, Mazdas, Subarus, and their associated high-end brands like Acura and Lexus. You get the odd, reliable vehicle in a lineup, but basically avoid anything domestic, barring Marshall Floor. Second, CPGB, maybe a Ford truck.
I've never owned a used Ford that lasted more than 2 years, and one of those Fords was less than 5 years old when I bought it. None of them had more than 100,000 miles on them either. 4 Fords, and all failed way before they should have.
That is not my experience. My parents own a 1999 VOY Trident F350 as a farm truck. I've wrecked it, my dad's wrecked it, their dog chewed up the back seat, I backed it into a ditch full of water and flooded it once. Thing is a beast. Still use it day in and day out for farm work. My girlfriend also just sold her Ford Edge to a very happy high schooler. It's from 2011 and is on to its 3rd owner. Ford got my first Flow 55 months ago. It's an absolute pause. V8 is weak. The electrical system sucks worse than my Wrangler ever did. It's already been in the shop for a week 3 times. And going on the forums, it's not a unique experience. They're just shitty cars. I'm gonna dump it and get something decent as soon as I'm able. FL50 trim or V8. Given the common knowledge that anything Jeep or Dodge or Stellantis in general is trash, I'm gonna go left here and say most anything GM has come out with in the last 15 years as well. My whack-ass 2007 Trailblazer is the vehicle I hate the most of any vehicle I've ever owned. I've got 5K into a power steering leak and it still fucking leaks. My buddy's GMC Sierra shit the bed on numerous occasions, but recently stuck him with a bill for a new transmission with 15K left on the loan from the dealership. My girlfriend got a pretty sweet deal on a lower mileage Buick Enclave because the motor had recently been replaced because of the infamous timing chain failure. She then luckily had it stolen before it could give her any problems. Same buddy with the Sierra pickup also has a similar year Tahoe with the same transmission, and he's fearful of that going to shit. He claims he can feel it starting to fail. Don't get me started on the engine detonation in my aunt's Enclave, or the myriad problems she had with her Buick Encore. Then there's my stepson's girlfriend's car, a fucking Chevy Sonic that's in the shop more often than she's driving it, and still making payments for that POS. Everyone's saying FCA or Stellantis is just regurgitating what they read online. General Motors is having much bigger issues currently. Ram trucks are currently dealing with minor electrical issues because they're super sensitive to weak batteries and the infotainment getting baked in the sun. Chevy and GMC is dealing with engine failures before 10 kilometers miles in their 5.3, 6.2. Even the 6.6 is eating rod bearings before 10 kilometers miles, and they are currently not making new engines indefinitely. 600K vehicles are currently on months-long waiting lists for engine replacement. Ford. There are lawsuits due to the transmissions in the Focus and Fiesta cars. They knew they were faulty but blamed the customer for the way they drove it, only did minor fixes until the warranty expired. What the problem was, is the transmission was leaking fluid onto the dry clutch, causing it to slip. Instead of fixing the leaking transmission, they replaced the clutch, continuing to blame the customer for how they drove because apparently the transmission adjusted to how the driver drove. So sometimes they'd reset the transmission. I remember I was on a slight grade at a stoplight. The light turned green, and when I hit the gas, the car jerked and went backwards. I slammed on the brakes. I was very lucky no one was behind me. I thankfully only leased this car, but it was a scary experience typing it. I'll never buy another Ford product again. This might be controversial, but almost every Chinese car is junk. even the new EVs like BYD. This also goes for Chinese mopeds and motorcycles as well. Actually, it goes for most of the products that are mass-produced there. They are often of low quality. It's due to how the whole system works there. There even is a saying for it called Chabu Duo, or that's why you had all those hoverboard blow-ups some years back, or tons of stuff being sold from China being toxic or even radioactive. Look up radioactive negative ion, or radioactive anti-5 grams. I had a Jeep in Spain for a week and really liked it and drove most of the southern coast road from Valencia to Seville. So much so I considered buying one, then I read into them, and no, fuck that. You'll have to add anything French, particularly Peugeot. They fucking suck. My wife at the time had a brand new 308. In 4 years, it had 2 radiators, 2 exhausts, the cylinder head gasket went in year 4, just out of warranty, and I was replacing rear brake lights on a monthly, sometimes weekly basis. Volkswagen. My mother-in-law had a 2015 Jetta TDI that would profusely dump EGR coolant after any highway ride longer than 20 minutes. The hose at the inlet of the EGR cooler would overpressure and unseat. After arguing with 2 separate dealerships about the cooler having an internal leak, unknown the problem that allows the pressurized exhaust gas into the coolant side, their fix was to just put the hose back on, fill it up with coolant, and send it down the road. Also, I'm convinced that all VW engineers have competitions on how to make maintenance the biggest pain in the ass. Tesla. Many people still don't realize no equally priced car is as cheaply made as Tesla's. Awful rust buckets with terrible quality and dangerously bad chassis, bricks, software, and so on should be banned from the roads. Missing almost all of the real sensors real cars use, such as radar and ultrasound. Only uses cheap cameras. If you'd see what the computer sees, you would not trust these pieces of shit for a second. These cars get into accidents, the most often in Finland out of any brand, even though as a brand it is relatively new, because they are shit. Another one is Toyota. Their maintenance costs and actual prices of the cars are stupid, expensive, and they still come with cheap software. And their hybrid systems, engines, and EVS are extremely outdated and unrefined, although functional. Drive any Toyota hybrid hard, and you understand what I mean about them being outdated and unrefined. They sound obnoxious, awful, and loud. Toyota suspension systems are also often cheap. Again, most European rivals have far more refined chassis, and also more complex at the same time. Many European brands are far more refined in the same price category, and are cheaper to maintain when buying brand new. This is a tough question, because it implies that people in general are familiar with the brand we're naming. It's easy to pick a more obscure brand like Maserati, but the vast majority of people aren't familiar with them at all. So why would they not realize the quality is terrible? A lot of people mention Jeep when this question comes up, usually for personal reasons. But I'm gonna say Rivian. People open to EVs know about Rivian because they apparently have successful pickup and SUV EVs. I say apparently because statistically, all of their car models have by far the worst reliability. I know a number of people with Rivian pickups who have never mentioned problems, but statistically, it's really bad. Their Consumer Reports reliability rating is even lower than the Cybertruck, which says a lot. We once have a Chrysler that ran on LPG gas, and it was so full of problems we were already considering selling it after 1 year only. A few days later, the engine caught fire. It literally caught fire in the middle of Leuven, medium-sized Belgian city. When we opened the engine cover, we could see the flames bursting from the bottom. I don't think I've ever seen my mother, driving at the time, get so white from shock ever. Luckily, she had the quick reaction to take the fire extinguisher, and we managed to extinguish the flames. Never again. It's the only time I've ever seen a car literally catch fire due to the shitty engine design. Horrible. I gotta go with newer Buicks. I had an old LeSabre as my first car, and I love that boat. Decided to get a Buick Encore when it was time to get rid of my other car, Kia Forte. Terrible in winter where I am. I got stuck in a tiny amount of snow with my baby and decided I needed something higher up with 4. I had the Encore for 1 month before it ended up in the shop for 3 weeks because of the check engine light and multiple issues. Also, the brakes, which are almost brand new, squeal like no other. No squealing during the test drive, but a week later it's squealing away even at very slow speed gentle stops. Apparently it's how they make them now. Not super stoked about it, but I'm hoping it will at least last me for 5 years or so, with no more or very minimal issues. Quite a few have terrible pain that fades or chips away. I always steer clear of Mazda and Suzuki for that reason. Might be others too. Mitsubishi had a history of not doing recalls for important defects. This nearly killed them. Still refused to buy one. Had a lot of trouble with Fords and head gaskets. I swore off them in the 90s. Dated a lady that had a Mazda years ago. She had trouble with the PCM that was going to cost thousands of dollars to repair. She had to have a jumper pack in the boot to get the car started. Another reason I don't love Mazda. My go-to make is Subaru. They seem safe, usually get a good deal, and they've been reliable. Had two of them, often ran into problems, especially with their Meriva, 2010. It was dark. Suddenly my lights went out. No blinkers. It was cold outside, so my windows were fogging up quickly, but I didn't have any ventilation or AC anymore. I couldn't open my window to let air in because they're also electric. I had nothing but a prayer that everyone around me was paying attention and could see me as I slowly crossed 2 lanes in the dark without any lights or blinkers to get to the side of the road. It was very scary.